Sweetie Belle Ships by Yukito. The Yukito Crusaders were hanging out at Tsukiku Corner one fine afternoon, enjoying some refreshing ice cream after playing in the hot summer sun, as was the norm for these three little fillies. And as was the norm for Sweetie Belle, she was sitting quietly as her two friends discussed ideas for acquiring their cutie marks. Some say Sweetie Belle is just very shy. Others say she simply doesn't know how to pay attention for more than 2 seconds. Whilst both of these rumors are true, they were not the reason for Sweetie Belle's silence at the present moment. She was merely waiting for something, some kind of trigger that would set events into motion.
Ah!
Sweetie Belle's eyes widened as she saw it, some ice cream to the side of Scootaloo's mouth, already starting to melt and drip down her face.
Hey, Scootaloo.
AppleBloom said, catching her friend's attention.
Y'all have some ice cream stuck to your face.
Scootaloo's face turned red, and she began to feel the side of her face with her hoof. Unfortunately, it was the wrong side. I do? Where?
Here.
AppleBloom said, lifting her eyes and leaning forward. She stopped her lips mere centimeters from Scootaloo's and stuck out her tongue, licking the ice cream from the Pegasus filly's face in a slow, sensual manner. She then pulled her tongue back into her mouth and swallowed almost completely melted ice cream.
There. Now you look fine.
AppleBloom? The two fillies stared at each other, their faces completely red and their hearts racing.
Hey, Scootaloo.
AppleBloom said, breaking Sweetie Belle from her daydream.
Y'all have some ice cream stuck to your face.
I do?
Scootaloo asked, feeling one side of her face for the ice cream, and then the other. She found it and groaned when she felt her hoof becoming wet. AppleBloom giggled and handed her a napkin.
Thanks.
With a few quick wipes, Scootaloo's face and hoof were completely clean. She crunched the napkin into a ball and threw it into a nearby trash can.
No problem.
AppleBloom said.
So, basketball cutie mark next?
Sure.
Scootaloo responded. Both fillies looked to their friend for final confirmation. Sweetie Belle smiled and nodded.
Sounds good, but I'm not very athletic.
That's fine.
AppleBloom said.
You can pick the next thing. That is, if we're all still cutie markless afterwards.
Well, okay.
The friends finished their ice creams and then made their way to the basketball court on the other side of town. After acquiring a ball from some of the older ponies by having Sweetie Belle beg with her wide, teary eyes until one of them broke into tears himself, the three fillies spent about 10 minutes playing basketball. Of course, not knowing the rules of basketball made it rather difficult, so they came up with their own version, whereby one pony would take a shot and then the next one have to make the same shot or they get a letter. They called this game Pony. Sweetie Belle was exhausted only 3 minutes in and decided to opt out of this cutie mark. Scootaloo and AppleBloom, who apparently were quite good at throwing ball into a hoop over and over again, because of how long the game had dragged on for, the two decided to add a new rule. The one not firing the shot is allowed to interfere with the shot. Sweetie Belle giggled as AppleBloom bucked an apple near Scootaloo just as she fired, causing her to miss. Now AppleBloom just had to make the final shot and she would win.
All right, here we go.
Hey, AppleBloom.
What?
AppleBloom was cut off by Scootaloo suddenly pressing her lips to hers. AppleBloom dropped the ball and closed her eyes as she melted into the kiss, her forelegs wrapping around Scootaloo's neck and her mouth slowly opening.
She shoots and she scores.
AppleBloom shouted, circling around the spot as she checked for her basketball cutie mark. She found nothing there and pouted.
Dang it, I was sure we'd get our cutie marks this time.
You just said that about the last, everything we've tried.
Scootaloo said, rolling her eyes.
Whatever. Sweetie Belle, your turn to decide what we do next.
Sweetie Belle's ears perked up. She had plenty of time to think while she was sitting on the sidelines, and she knew just what she wanted to do.
Drawing?
Scootaloo asked.
Seriously? You said I could choose what we do next.
Sweetie Belle said, drooping her ears and pouting as she scuffed the floor with a hoof.
Come on, Scootaloo.
AppleBloom said.
Let's at least give it a try.
Ugh, fine.
Scootaloo said, causing Sweetie Belle to perk up immediately.
But just one picture. Got it?
Sweetie Belle and AppleBloom nodded, and then the three fillies gathered their drawing supplies and made a start. Sweetie Belle decided to draw her sister and herself enjoying a nice relaxing picnic together, with a giant monster in the background devouring Diamantiera and Silver Spoon. AppleBloom decided to draw the apple orchard being attacked by parrot sprites, with her family defending it, and Scootaloo was drawing her idol, Remodash, kicking Nightmare Moon's back to the moon. Sweetie Belle had finished her own drawing and looked up to see how her two friends were doing. AppleBloom was coming along nicely. She made Sweetie Belle frown at how much better she was at it than her own piece. As for Scootaloo, it seemed as if the Pegasus filly was having trouble coloring inside the lines. She was making a lot of mistakes, possibly because she was drawing too quickly.
Here.
AppleBloom said, placing her hoof over Scootaloo so that she could guide her.
Take it more slowly. See? Ain't that better?
Wow, you're right, Scootaloo said, dropping her pencil and placing her forehoofs on AppleBloom's shoulders. Thanks, Bloom.
Don't mention it, Lulu.
The two inched their faces closer and closer together, closing their eyes and opening their lips as they...
Here.
AppleBloom said, placing her hoof over Scootaloo's so she could guide her.
Take it more slowly. See? Ain't that better?
Sweetie Belle's eyes widened, and her breath caught in her throat.
Is this really happening? Right before my eyes? Wow, you're right,
Scootaloo said.
Thanks, AppleBloom.
She looked into AppleBloom's eyes, and the farm filly stared right back at her.
It is happening! Oh my gosh, this is so great!
No problem, Scootaloo.
AppleBloom said, smiling warmly at her friend, who smiled back as the two continued to gaze into each other's eyes.
I think my nose is going to start bleeding.
So, you done now?
AppleBloom asked, to which Scootaloo nodded and pulled up her drawing.
Oh, you did your Rainbow Dash and... Is that Pokemon?
Scootaloo frowned.
It's Nightmare Moon!
She shouted.
Oh, if you say so.
Sweetie Belle looked between the two with a look of disbelief on her face. She couldn't believe it. Things were going so well. In a perfect world, they would be kissing right now and declaring their love for one another.
You can't just set up a scenario like that and then continue down the friendship path.
Sweetie Belle, what'd you draw?
AppleBloom asked, but she received no answer. Instead, she looked confused as she saw Sweetie Belle's angry glare pointing her way.
Sweetie Belle?
Ugh, you two are so unfair!
She shouted as she got up and stormed out of the clubhouse. AppleBloom and Scootaloo exchanged a confused look with one another.
Did I say something wrong?
AppleBloom asked.
Oh, you know what? I think it's your time of the month.
AppleBloom's eyes widened.
You don't say. Think we should go after her?
Nah, I'm sure she'll be fine.
Later that day, Sweetie Belle entered her room and walked over to her computer, a frown on her face as she recalled the day's events.
So many perfect opportunities, all missed because my friends are just so stupid.
With a sigh, Sweetie Belle switched her computer on and opened up a document entitled Apple Bloom and Scootaloo's First Date. And with a huff, she began typing.
Reality sucks.
The end.